Hi, very good afternoon once again, and thank you very much, Justin, for calling me back. I am privileged, ladies and gentlemen, to moderate this session, although it is beyond my capability, and you will soon know this. This is called Mantra on Scaling Faster, Building a Global Brand and Creating a Niche. Very, very warm welcome to this Leaders Speak session. This has been planned with a specific intent to understand three clear aspects of growth for SMEs: scale, how to build scale, global expansion, and building a niche. So, how to build scale, how to build global expansion, and how to build a niche from three hugely respected leaders from our industry who have shaped the future for us so long. Pleased to welcome Ms. Rekha Menon, Chairman and Senior Managing Director of Accenture, Mr. CP Gurnani, CEO of Tech Mahindra, Managing Director too, and Mr. Keshav Murgesh, Group CEO of WNS Global Services. So I'll be reading their profiles and would like to give you what is a very important one. Welcome all our speakers. Rekha Menon is the chairperson and senior managing director of Accenture in India. She is also the vice chairman of NASSCOM, a member of National Council for CII, co-chair of CII's Indian Women Network, and USIBC's India Advisory Council. Prior to joining Accenture, Rekha was an entrepreneur herself. She co-founded two technology companies and a not-for-profit organization. Rekha is globally recognized among top 10 LGBT ally executives. She is also on the board of two not-for-profit organizations, which are Pratham Books and Akshara Foundation. Uh, Now I'm going to talk about Mr. CP Gurnani, popularly known as CP. He is the managing director and chief executive officer of the Tech Mahindra. I always call him Mr. CP Gurnani. He gets very upset with me. He says, stay on first name basis so that I can beat you if you do anything wrong. So he is also the past chairman of NASSCOM 1617, an accomplished business leader. CP has played a pivotal role in Tech Mahindra's transformational journey and acquisition of merger of Satyam, which happened many years back. In a in his career spanning 39 years, CP has held several leading positions with HP, with Pero Systems India, and SCL. I also now would like to speak about his qualifications. He is a chemical engineering graduate from NIT Raulkela, and CP has been felicitated with honorary doctorate degree, recognized among the top 100 global CEOs. He has been ranked the best CEO of the year by Forbes India Leadership Awards in 2015, and also by Business Today Best CEO Award in 2019. He has also been awarded a Technology Icon Award by India 2020 by War India, and he is an active member of the Tech Mahindra Foundation. He has also co-founded his own NGO called Titlia for underprivileged children. Now I would be speaking about Mr. Keshav Murgesh. Uh, he is the group CEO of WNS Global Services, the past chairman of NASSCOM, and he's an accomplished business leader himself, member of the Wall Street Journal CEO Council. Uh, I'm just searching for some information. If you can just bear with me, he's responsible for executing the business strategy and directing the overall performance and growth of 41,000 people strong organization across 60 offices, which is what WNS is today. He is known as a turnaround guy, has been at the helm of global majors such as Sintel and ITC. Keshav has been the NASSCOM BPM Council Chair for two consecutive terms. He is also the chairman of NASSCOM Consumer Interest Protection Task Force. Mr. Murgesh is on the board of WNS Care Foundation that focuses on education for lesser privileged children. He is recognized as an Executive of the Year at the Stevie International Business Awards, most influential business leader of Asia by Economic Times, CNBC TV India, India Business Leader Awards, CNBC's Asia India Disruptor of the Year Award, and Outstanding CEO at the Asia Pacific Entrepreneurship Awards 2015.
Hanuman, we should start a panel discussion here.
Keshav is a global thought leader, and he has last spoken at the Harvard Global Conference.
Okay. I have 2 more pages on Keshav. You did not discuss how he scaled up his NGO, how Shamini and he look after the NGO, how during COVID they fed so many millions of people. So, Hanuman, your research is very poor.
Sir, which is what I said in the beginning, that it's a very...
And his cricketing history you did not cover.
Yes, absolutely. So that, I said in the beginning, it's very difficult to manage a panel of such stars.
Scaling up, Keshav. But don't worry, me and Rekha will chime in.
Okay. Thank you.
If we are allowed, if we have something to add after his wisdom.
Okay. So each of these leaders have a differentiated positioning. Friends, Accenture has created a global leadership. Tech Mahindra, on the other hand, has grown as an Indian company in previous decade to be counted among the global leaders. And we have WNS, which has become a significantly large player globally on the back of building business competencies and focus on specific domains. Who could be better than this team to guide us today as to how we can aspire and plan our growth as an SME company? So, format of this session is that I'm going to be asking a few questions to our distinguished speakers, and after which we'll be glad to take audience questions. Please start posting your questions in the Q&A box as soon as possible, because we will be taking this at the end of this session in next 20-25 minutes. This is a massive opportunity for you to interact with such great leaders. Please don't miss it. Very warm welcome to you, our speakers, Rekha, CP, and Keshav. Thank you for giving us time for NISE 2020 from your busy schedule. Let me start by asking you the question number 1. What is your view? What is your take? How do you see the global IT industry changing post-pandemic? What are the new opportunities appearing in the horizon, and what are the new challenges you see? I would request Rekha first to speak on this for a few minutes, and then would request CP to take this up, and then Keshav. Thank you, and Rekha to take over from here.
Hanuman.
Yes, sir.
I have a recommendation.
Yeah.
Because, this is a virtual medium.
Yeah.
Request the audience to bring in their questions as fast as possible. Yes. Because ultimately all of us are here so that we can have a dialogue with the audience.
Yes.
And Devjani and Chairman Mr. Rao have just covered some of the basic industry trends. So just a humble request, try and get audience questions.
Yes. So CP, what we are doing is that we have already asked the audience to start pushing questions in the Q&A box. And as soon as these questions appear, we will get to answer that. In the meantime, let us start with Rekha. What is her view? And then yourself, or if you want to wait for some time, then maybe Keshav can speak first. Let's have this view. What is your very high level view of having to understand how technology is changing, how new things are coming up in the horizon, and how will it impact SMEs? You could talk about anything which comes in your mind. Especially, do you see an opportunity where SMEs can collaborate with the large companies and work together, create new innovations, go into the new business segments very rapidly, and create a new world order? So over to Rekha, please.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to speak on the trends because CP is right. I mean, we just heard Praveen and we heard Devyani on what has changed, right? In terms of the big leapfrog of technology, behavior shifts that have happened, the fact that there's sustainability is the big new mantra, et cetera, and the opportunities. So if I had to think of a few areas for SMEs, then one, I would say taking this massive digital transformation that's happening, the wave, and grabbing it. And within that, I've heard a lot about, the large companies are going to grab the opportunity and there's going to be a consolidation. I don't believe that, right? I actually believe that there's a scale is not the only game. I actually believe that, hyper specialization areas of growth uh, will create new opportunities for SMEs, whether it's in cloud or IoT or edge or big data, etc. Second, there's a new customer category that has emerged, which is really the uh, mid-sized companies, which are having to accelerate their digital journey, which are actually having to rethink their business model. So that's another opportunity. Digital native companies are there. Then the third thing is SMEs themselves have to accelerate their own disruption in order to meet what's happening right now. They have to rethink their cost structure. They have to rethink their delivery models. They have to rethink their talent. So just three things, and then I'll let others speak.
Keshav.
Okay. Keshav, do you want to take this up next?
Yeah, what I will say is, I think from an SME point of view, while a lot of this has already been covered, so we will not go into that again. If you look at the new HP study that came out recently, right, when they looked at 8 countries and the impact of COVID on SMEs and the confidence coming from them, they found that 73% of companies, overall felt that they would be able to navigate COVID quite well, right? And a higher percentage of confidence came from India compared to 61% or so coming from the rest of Asia. So that itself is a booster in terms of how the SME community in India has navigated it till now. But more importantly, 61% of those polled actually from India said that post-COVID, new opportunities will emerge for them and for India, right? And it will come from all those verticals that Praveen and Devyani spoke about earlier, because every business is now a tech business. Every business has got transformed into a completely new, business model at this point in time, driven by technology. And therefore, the opportunities for any company, big, small, medium, whatever, to be smart, come up with innovative ideas, innovative thinking, and then disrupt and create, first domestic and thereafter global kind of businesses is very high in my opinion, right? And again, I want to say that, while COVID was happening, if you look at how some of the digital attackers and the e-commerce companies actually pivoted their business models and therefore their market caps, you will see that, all these are only disruptions for us to learn from and to go to the next model. Each of us who run companies, CP, he is the turnover king of Indian IT. If you look at what he did 2 years ago, right? And how he transformed their brand. You look at how Rekha's company has kept on acquiring companies and transforming Accenture's, go-to-market positioning. You look at WNS also, over the last 8 years, the word WNS also keeps on changing from what no sales to nurture specialists to all kinds of other things based on how we transform. So I actually think that COVID is just a point in time and one disruptor. There are many other things that are constantly happening to us from which we can learn and pivot to a new model.
Very well. Thank you. CP, your opening remarks.
Hanuman, again, thanks for brilliantly organizing this conference. One of the biggest vacuums has always been to get the small sector or the medium sector on the same dining table where many others can help and support each other. And I do want to compliment you, Hanuman, for that initiative. I just want all of us to remember that Infosys did not become what it is today. Neither was WNS. I mean, as many of you would recall, WNS was formed by British Airways as a captive unit in 1996. Today, at about 3.6 billion. I told you I'll give you a lot of data on Keshav. At about a $3.6 billion market cap. Similarly, Accenture, if you recall, was a small unit out of Arthur Andersen. So my point is that when you start small, does not mean that you don't dream big. When you start small, if you have a final destination, I mean, final is a wrong word, a destination which is big enough, then you will pace yourself accordingly.
Okay.
And what does that pacing means? The pacing means is that you start looking at resources in a very different way. I started my career with an entrepreneur called Shiv Nadar, and trust me, the revenue was 60 crores when I started with Shiv Nadar. And what was Shiv's differentiator at that point of time? He never said I'm a small scale industry at 60 crores, because below 75 crores is 60 crores, right? Shiv would go to the best of the management institutes and hire the best of the talent that is available and pay them 1.5 times, because the brand would not attract it. I mean, remember, it was a time when you still had a Citibank or a Grindlays competing for that talent. But Shiv always knew that he is going to build a mega corporation. Number two, when you look at the flywheel of a strategy, there is always a second flywheel, which is execution. And that execution means, Hanuman, you are a genius, but some of us need a finance guy, some of us need a marketing guy, some of us need a legal guy, some of us would need a sales guy to make sure that that flywheel is complete. And the third part, as far as I am concerned, opportunity knocks on your door. Think of the Government of India announcement, Atmanirbhar. Now, what does it mean for a Maulik Bhansali or a Hanuman Tripathi or a Kamal Agarwal or a Jaimin? That means that opportunity is no longer open to Accenture or WNS. Below 200 crore, that opportunity is directly going to a SME. Now, similarly, when we start talking about the nimbleness and the agility, and that's what Devjani shared with all of us. In my opinion, I think those opportunities are knocking on our doors from very, very different directions.
Very well. Yeah.
So Hanuman would love to. I can only say is the advantage of this panel is we started small and we have grown it big.
Yeah.
And we would definitely love to mentor a few people, because I think if they wanted a lecture, they could have bought a book.
Sure, absolutely. No, thank you very much, CP. This has been extremely valuable. And now I'd like to take to the second part of this conversation, asking Rekha. Rekha, is it possible for you to share your story about Accenture as to how Accenture built the brand globally? How did it become a global brand? And obviously, you must have benefited from Arthur Andersen being the core of the business when the demerger took place, or the new name came in year 2000. And unlike the other companies which didn't have a tech arm, you had the benefit of consulting as well as technology both being there in the organization. But that is my understanding. If you could please tell the audience what is the inner story, how did you build the great brand, and how can some of our companies emulate, even at a smaller level, this kind of learning? Thank you very much. Over to Rekha.
Okay, so let me first bust that myth. The Arthur Andersen split was a fairly acrimonious split.
Okay.
And Accenture had to give up the Anderson name and give up the legacy and rethink a new name in 90 days and change the entire naming and everything else. So it's not that you benefited from it, because it wasn't at that time, it was a fairly acrimonious split that happened. So you have to build from scratch,
Okay.
and including getting people how to pronounce Accenture. And I remember when we started in India, it was like very difficult to get people to even pronounce uh, what Accenture was, let alone tell them what the company did. The brand really gets built on what you do. So it's not spending big dollars. And CP is right. We started small. So it is not a spending of big dollars. It is creating your differentiator, creating what is it that you're bringing different to the table. It's building trust. And actually, right now in the pandemic era, where you no longer have have to physically go and sell and market yourself, it's a big opportunity, I think, for SMEs actually, to use the opportunity to build their brand. The brand obviously has to be based on your product and services, but it's a great way to build your brand right now and focus on what's your niche or what's your differentiator. And it doesn't have to be built on money. It has to be built on trust. It has to be built on the fact that you are what you say you are. And it can be done in many different ways. I mean, you can do it whether individually, you can do it. We have a lot of, I mean, I was just thinking of the SME brands in just the SAS space right now. You know, you have Zoho, you have Freshworks, who are known globally, right out of India. And they've done it based on their expertise, not on money spent. Or you've done it, and I would say at this time, another way to do it is tie up with the ecosystem partners and focus on that. And that's another way to build a great brand. And I could go on, but I think this is enough for now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rekha. This has been brilliant. And the question which I wanted to ask Keshav has come from the audience itself. Keshav, so is it really important to create a niche in the first place? All our IT services companies which have grown huge, they are horizontal companies. So is creating niche important? And if yes, how do you create niche? So we will just be mindful of the time. It's 9 minutes, 20 seconds left for us. We have to answer some of the questions of the audience. And I also have to learn from you a few things. So over to Keshav. Thank you.
Hanuman, so that's a great question. And again, it totally depends on the vision that the board and the management team want to have for that particular company. So some people would like to be everything for all. But again, within that, I know they focus on a few things. And there are some of us who are very clear that we will do only certain things. So for example, you look at WNS. We are very clear we will only be in the business of business transformation. We are not in the business of IT services, application development, maintenance things. So to some extent, you could say that's a niche that we are creating for ourselves, right? And we have said we'll be only in the what we call the BPM space. So that's one. The second is, within that, which area do you want to focus on? We have chosen 3 or 4 verticals where we have built capability, which is what I call inch wide, mile deep, right? In each one of those areas. And we go to the market with a highly vertical-led approach. So people looking for careers do not look at WNS as a BPM company, really. They are people who are looking for an insurance career or a healthcare career or a retail CPG career, banking career, who is the kind of talent that competes. But that doesn't mean we have a very strong technology, that we do not have a very strong technology capability. I want to tell you that everything is a technology-based business today. So we are also very clear that while domain is very important, and that within domains, subdomains are very intensely invested in. We are also creating IP inside the company through our own technology solutions, where anything strategic we own, and beyond that, we have partners to help with that. So if you ask me, end of the day, from a client's point of view, if they want to see us operating as an extension of their enterprise, they would come to us. So that is our kind of niche, kind of go to the market strategy. And I can tell you, this has evolved over the last few years. So I just take half a minute to say, when I came into this company, people used to ask me, what does WNS stand for, right? I started by saying, what, no sales. From there, as we, changed the strategy and executed well, it became work never stops. Then it became we never sleep because we, completely changed our mantra. Then as we moved past into the skilling game, it became we nurture specialists. And today it is all about winning never stops based on the new learning from COVID and the fact that we see a very bright next decade also.
Fantastic. Very, very well said, Keshav. I really like that. Incidentally, I never tried to find out what is WNS. It's a good thinking you gave because you build that brand so strong that nobody is going behind that. But fantastic. Thank you very much. So, CP, once again, this has happened that the question which I planned has come from the audience for you because you build a global scale company out of India and created a world class brand. So, people are asking you, as a small company, if we get a lot of money in terms of funding, should we deploy it in organic marketing or should we go for M&As? Should we go for acquisition? Which is a better strategy? We have 5.5 minutes. I have to still ask a question to Rekha, which is very important to me. So please start, CP. Thank you very much.
Hanuman, ultimately it all depends on the product, the market, and what you want to be. So, for example, just to take the Tech Mahindra example, we were a, one dog, one pony, one trick pony, uh, and one dog show, one trick pony means we had only one client. It was called British Telecom.
Yes.
Now, my core competence became telecom, and once I decided to scale it up, it was very natural that we will scale it up in telecom. And what would I call the core competence? That we build systems where you don't get a dead dial tone. We don't build systems where you need to reboot your system, and we don't allow viruses to come in. And we design system for 99.999%. So when I start going in with that quality reference, that fault tolerance, I not only went to the telecom, then I was able to go to the bank. I was able to go to a hospital. So my point is very simple, that if your core competence you understand, and then you are able to go down to the adjacency markets, you will then be able to go forward. Now, M&A can be a part of a strategy, but M&A is not an answer to global expansion all the time.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it can actually boomerang if you try that way. So, for example, let us say that I want to go to Brazil tomorrow. Now, I don't know Portuguese, my people don't know Portuguese, and I suddenly want to become a Tech Mahindra Brazil. If I acquire a large company, I may or may not be able to marry the DNA of two companies.
Sure.
So we will have to decide. I mean, it's part of a strategy. As long as you know your end game, you will decide which strategy works. Yes, we have grown by acquisitions, and we, trust me, have also gone wrong.
Sure.
So I can only say is there is a lot of learning behind these years.
Absolutely.
Hanuman, I
Okay.
wanted to add to what
Yes.
CP was saying,
Sure,
if I may,
please go
because
ahead.
you were
Yes.
talking about the brand. Now, just reflecting on that and agreeing with what both of them had said, which was each of us built
Yeah.
the brands from very small scale. And if there's one commonality between all, everyone built on one thing that was differentiating and then took it to adjacent spaces. I mean, Accenture, we got known for our advice that our clients could trust.
Sure.
And then we moved into adjacent spaces, and then we moved into technology, and then into BPM. And so it's not horizontal to start with. It was focus on something, differentiate yourself, and then move.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you, CP and Rekha both. So over to you, Rekha. One question which I always had is that how do you see in a large company such as yourself the environment for collaboration with smaller organizations? Smaller organizations which have high innovation or they have products or they have an IP, or smaller organizations which can probably have more skills which you want and readily available for certain projects. Do you really see outsourcing or collaboration? I wouldn't use the word outsourcing, collaboration between small and big really working out in terms of having to create scale for SME companies, which are pure services companies or have some IP?
So two different, you're asking two different questions. So one,
Yes.
from an Accenture perspective, absolutely. Because with the pace of change that's happening,
Yeah.
uh, uh, we cannot do it all by ourselves. So therefore, you have to collaborate with the ecosystem,
Yeah.
big or small, right? And that means that we have to respect the SMEs for what they're bringing to the table. It could be certain niche skills, it could be IP, it could be certain market access. Either which way. So collaboration is key, and which also means that if the collaboration has to work long term, we have to make sure and be very mindful that we're not misusing our size and scale, which can happen. So absolutely, and we have a very good, well-structured system that works together on that. It also gives access to the SME, right? Because you get to clients that you wouldn't have had access to. We get access to certain skills, so it's a symbiotic relationship. And it's not just Accenture; it's all large companies that use it because that's the only way you can change. That's the only way you can disrupt yourselves, and the only way you can grow. And if I just see in the last 1 year, the number of SMEs we collaborated with just in India has shot up dramatically because the pace of change is so high. So that was the answer to your first question. I forgot your second question.
So it was all related to saying that whether it is IP and pure services, both means would you collaborate on pure services, and also if you have to then go for an RFP where there is an IP involved and you like a company which has a product or solutions, would you take their product and do a co-branding or do a co-sell?
All the time. The second one, all the time.
Okay.
The first one, less so, because our ability to hire organically, unless and until it's specialized niche skills,
Sure.
but so less so in the first area.
Very well. Good. Thanks, Atan. Thank you very much. So, CP, over to you. Apologies. I want to ask a question to Keshav first. Uh, Keshav, there is a very important announcement which Pradhan Mantri ji made on the OSP guidelines, and the entire industry went on euphoria. It was a work done by Devjani and her team and yourselves in a big way. I think it's time to tell the audience. We have about 1,200 audience today. A lot of them are, many are large CIOs, large company CIOs, and about 800 IT SME companies here, 300 CIOs here. I would like you to please address this audience to say what is the benefit of the OSP guideline, and especially to SMEs and to the tier 3, tier 4 cities. Over to you.
Sure. So that's an excellent question, Hanuman. So first I'll start by, on behalf of NASSCOM itself, mentioning that even during the COVID crisis, see this team of people, 3 people that we have on this panel, the people who spoke before, you mentioned Devjani, Praveen, so many others on the NASSCOM EC, the focus that we had on EC in terms of making sure that during COVID, all the effort from EC was directed towards the SME community. Yeah. And not asking for any SOPs or any relaxations for the larger companies must be appreciated. Yeah. So if you see the announcements that came out around GST refunds, income tax refunds, bank loans, all that, a lot of that happened because of the great initiatives driven by the NASSCOM secretariat and team, because we said we must focus on the SME community. That was during that period in time. At the same time, while COVID was happening, one of the biggest initiatives that happened was we moved the BCP program into what I call PCP, or Pandemic Continuity Planning. We executed on something the Indian industry had never done before. And within a week, thanks to NASSCOM's efforts working closely with the government, we had moved almost 4 million desktops to people's homes, and work went on as if nothing had changed for global clients. 6 or 7 months into COVID, I think what has also been realized is that the Indian IT industry can continue to operate in this fashion, from home, and also blend with work from office, right? And I think, again, the industry bodies led by NASSCOM have been working very closely with the government to essentially relax some of the norms to enable long-term and permanent work from home. And that is around relaxing the norms with DOT, with the special economic zones, and many other initiatives, which have now resulted in what Honorable Prime Minister announced in terms of permanent work from home, which will be very, very positive if you ask me. NASSCOM is also working around helping to create more business-friendly labor laws to enable this for the long term. Now, I'll tell you what will happen as a result. If you look at our industry, 60% of the people working in our industry actually come from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 locations into tier 1 locations. This will enable us to work, from those locations. It will create, if you ask me, it will enable the gig economy to some extent. It will create more part-time employment. We can get people who are even retired, but who have strong domain knowledge or technology skills into the industry. And very importantly, it can also enable, if you see, the brilliant N. Chandra's, read his book on Digital Nation, he talks about 110 million, women with secondary education degrees who can be part of the workforce, but who are not part of it because they want a part-time job or they want a safe work environment. I think all of this will enable all of this. I think, therefore, these announcements led by the initiatives of NASSCOM are absolutely brilliant for the industry.
Thank you. Thank you, Keshav. This has been extremely useful. We have run out of time, but I just want to ask one question, which the audience is asking to Mr. C.P. Gurnani. Should we be investing as small companies in R&D? And what should be ideally the budget of a company which has, let's say, low profit or low cash flows? Very quickly, CP.
Hanuman, again, it all depends on the business plan of the company, what niche they are serving. If you are a pure services company, your investment obviously will be much lower because whatever you invest, the cycle time to pay back should be fast enough. But if you are let us say, a Tejas Networks, which is trying to, design a new switch, you probably will invest 80% of your first 2 years revenue into designing a product.
Yeah.
So it all is a clear equation which will come out of your product and service and selling strategy.
Very good. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I think with this, we complete our session. Thank you very much, Rekha. Thank you very much, CP and Keshav. It has been brilliant from our perspective in terms of learning how the leaders in the industry see the future of the industry and how should SME look forward to working forward with you, and also, of course, planning their own growth. So thank you very much for spending your time for NISE, and we look forward to your continued guidance. Thank you.